thank you. And thank you also for the invitation for me to speak here today to you. I don't know if you know any Dutch people, but we Dutch people, we love to give our opinion. So I jumped at this chance to give my opinion on something. Yeah, we Dutch, we really like that, to give our opinion. We also do it when we're not invited to do that, and we even do it when it's really totally inappropriate to do it, but then we still do it. And you could call it a weakness. Some people also call it a strength, but again, that's also probably a matter of opinion. So I want to talk to you today about export, and from two perspectives. I think I'll explain that later during the presentation. Give me a little bit of time before I come to the point, because first I like to set the scene a little bit. I like to give you my background a little bit and who I am, so that you understand what I do and why I do it, and why I give a certain advice maybe. So first I want to do the introduction of Hyla Cranes Group, for whom I work. Then I like to give you an overview of the Dutch maritime cluster. Want to do a small comparison between Estonia and the Netherlands. Then I want to talk about export management and also some practical recommendations for public and private partnership. So my background, when I started my career, I worked for Holland Marine Equipment Association. It's the association of maritime suppliers in the Netherlands, and I was responsible there for the export department. So for organizing the trade fairs abroad and also organizing trade missions, sometimes together with our prime minister or with a minister, and sometimes just small road shows where we'd go to foreign countries and meet the business there and try to promote the Dutch companies. So that's one side from which I've looked at business. And then after some 5 years, I decided that I wanted to give it a go myself. Started working for a maritime supply company in bulk handling systems for Carlsen, Swedish company that then came to the Netherlands. And now I work for Hyla. Hyla is an Italian and Dutch company. We sell marine cranes, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Our mission is to be the most reliable partner for custom-built marine and offshore cranes. And we are in it for the long term, so we want to be with our customers for the long term. As it is Italian, we have our core values, of course, in good red: power, passion, and partnership. I think the passion is very much the Italian side. We go also for the power, for the partnership, but also for the power. So the power means actually to build the cranes that have the power to what they have to lift, but also to support our customers, because they will be working at sea with our cranes. And if the crane breaks down, then they have a big problem. That's the item that they use to earn money. So we have to help them in order to support our product anywhere in the world. So we have 3 locations where we work. We have the factory in Italy and the headquarters. That's also where our engineering is being done. And then we have the Netherlands company, and there we take care of the sales of cranes in most of Northern Europe. And also our field engineers are based there because we are responsible for after sales worldwide. Then we also have a small office in Singapore. So we sell different type of cranes. We have the fixed boom crane, the telescope crane, the foldable crane, jib knuckle boom. Maybe you have heard of this vessel. It's a Sir David Attenborough. We are supplying all the cranes for that one. If you haven't heard of it, then maybe you will see it in the Discovery Channel sometime soon, because it's an Antarctic survey vessel, and it might come back in some documentaries on Antarctica or the Arctic. We also supply the big offshore cranes, even the lattice boom cranes, bulk manipulators, and for some specific purposes also truck cranes. We are based in the Netherlands. I'm based in the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is quite special in the sense that it is the most complete maritime cluster in the world on a very, very small area of land and sea. We have the ports, we have the maritime services, shipbuilding, the suppliers to the shipbuilding, so the marine suppliers. We have leisure craft and water sports, fishing, dredging, all of that in a very small area. We also have the offshore. We get oil and gas from the North Sea. We have the seagoing shipping and also inland shipping going to Germany. And you will not find another cluster that is so complete in such a small area in the world. There's a lot of people employed in that cluster, 166,750 people approximately. The production value is 55 billion euro. And the added value in the Netherlands is 18.5 billion euro, which is about 3% of our GDP. The export value is also rather big, 25.9 billion euro. So export is really important to us. We are a transit country, but also our shipbuilding depends on export. And now I'd like to take a couple of minutes to show you a small movie on the Netherlands and on our maritime sector.
This is Maritime by Holland. One of the world's great maritime powers is located on the North Sea coast in a delta of 3 major European rivers. Here in Holland you'll find a vibrant ecosystem of 12,000 maritime companies within a 100-kilometre radius. A place where yacht and shipbuilders collaborate with marine engineers, dredgers share ties with equipment suppliers, and R&D giants compare notes with specialised consultancies. All of this takes place in a nation whose past, present and future is intimately connected to water. The Dutch have been leaders in the maritime world for centuries. As a small country well below sea level, Holland has a long and distinguished history with water. The Dutch have played a key role in the discovery of new lands and trading across the oceans. The lion's share of Western European trade in the 17th century was carried in vessels from the Netherlands. At its peak, the Dutch fleet comprised over 20,000 ships, ranging from 50 to 600 tons. In addition to shipbuilding, this golden age also saw the development of a fishing industry, the building of the world's first ever yachts, the dredging of harbours, the transfer and storage of goods, and increasing trade via inland waters. Today, Holland is home to many companies that are at the top of their industry. A powerful cluster of 11 different sectors, connected to the rivers and seas, provides an unbeatable combination of expertise and experience. Holland exports nearly 2/3 of its maritime work, changing the life of communities worldwide. The first gas-oil-free LNG-powered inland vessel, the Green Stream, was designed and built by the Dutch. We gave the world the marvel that is Dubai's Palm Island. Connoisseurs covet our yachts, our ports and Dutch-flagged merchant ships such as reefers, seagoing towage, general cargo, semi-submersibles, product and gas tankers catalyzed the global economy. The Dutch are innovators in the offshore oil and gas production sector, and our Navy participates in peacekeeping missions worldwide. These maritime successes are driven by a signature can-do attitude. The Dutch believe that any problem can be solved and any dream can be realized. We are respected craftsmen who take pride in the quality of our work. Another key success factor is delivering added value to clients and the society at large. The Dutch are actively tackling the challenge of climate change, population growth and energy scarcity. Sustainability is at the forefront of our minds. We are constantly pioneering innovative designs and energy-efficient propulsion technologies. There is an ongoing search for lighter materials and other ways to reduce our environmental footprint. This is Maritime by Holland.
So the keywords there, sustainability and also innovation. Innovation is really important because we are an expensive country. Everyone else in the world can do things a lot cheaper than we can. So we have to be smarter and think about what we're doing and then deliver a product with which our customer in the end can earn more money. So this cluster, this maritime cluster, it also comprises of large formal and informal networks. You can think of the universities, you can think of the companies themselves who network together. The government, of course, is also involved. But this is also informally. My father is a sailor, so I knew the maritime business already, and you see a lot of that, that there's also friends and family relations across that maritime cluster. That's really important. It helps us to go across the world trying to export our products, and it helps us that we can call a friend or a family member and ask them what they think of Brazil or Vietnam or whatever. Sometimes they call us the Dutch mafia, and I heard that there is an Estonian initiative also called Estonia Mafia, and I think that's really important, that you share knowledge together and make it reciprocal. So someone calls you and asks you for your help or your information, and give that information, because that will mean that that person, next time you call him for questions, then he will answer to you as well. It's very important. As you can see, I have here the figures for the shipbuilding market and also for the marine suppliers. As you can see, the market is going down. That has to do with the oil price. But you can also see that the export part of the business is really big. Actually, the business would not exist without the export. And the same goes for the marine suppliers. So in our case, we have to export, otherwise we do not have an existence. So the comparison between Estonia and the Netherlands. The Netherlands is slightly smaller than Estonia. There are a lot more people though, so it's very crowded and we're in traffic jams all the time. Economically, the Netherlands is bigger and the average income is higher, but on the other side you can also say that Estonia is much more competitive with cost of labor. There are a lot of similarities. One similarity that I found today is that we both have languages that foreigners find really hard to understand. I spent some time here, sitting here listening, but it's really difficult to understand what is being said. And probably you'll find the same thing if you would go to Holland and attend a seminar there in Dutch. Another similarity is that we are surrounded by bigger neighbors. We always tend to look at the Germans. We have a little bit of a difficult relationship with the Germans because on one hand we are a bit jealous of them. On the other hand we also admire them. So that's always a little bit difficult, and we love it when we beat them in the football. What we see with the Germans is that they have much bigger companies and much more bigger companies. There are big companies in the Netherlands. You probably have heard of Heineken or Philips. AkzoNobel we talked about today. But there are many more big companies in Germany. And our companies actually mostly are small and medium enterprises. And I learned that that is the same in Estonia. Most of the people work for small and medium enterprises, SME companies, we call it. So that's an important thing. There are also differences, and the most important difference is where we are. The Netherlands is, let's say, at the heart of Western Europe, at the North Sea, and Estonia is more on the outside of Europe. I think transport infrastructure is also different. The Netherlands is a real transit country, so we have the port of Rotterdam, we have Schiphol Airport, and travel from Estonia, maybe if you go abroad, maybe a little bit more difficult. But I also know that there are very successful exporting companies, for instance in Norway on remote islands, and they have to travel much further than if you would have to travel from Estonia. So it is possible, and it's good to have good connections, but it's always possible to be a successful exporting country, even if you don't have maybe the big airports. So now we come to the, let's call it, advice part, my recommendations. If I were in the shoes of an Estonian company, basically of any company, and I wanted to export my product, then first thing I would start with is to make a plan. My personal plan, my individual plan for my company to conquer the world. And that plan has to be a plan that you believe in, really. Because you will have to convince other people to buy your products in other countries. They may have never met you, they may not know who you are. So if you are not convinced yourself of what you want to sell to them, then they will not be convinced, so you have to be convinced. Another thing, being from a small country and being in an SME company, I advise to work together with like-minded companies. It's not so smart to do that with your direct competitors, but for instance, I took a friend along to Norway. At that time I was working with the bulk handling equipment. He was selling life-saving equipment, so we were not competing, but we had the same customers, only he didn't have any entrances into Norway. So when we discussed about it, I said, you know what, I'll ask if I can take you along, if you can come along one trip, and I'll introduce you to those shipyards over there. Actually, he became much more successful than I was in Norway, so in the end, I felt a bit jealous, but I'm happy that I was able to help him. And I've received that help from other people as well in my business. So that's really important to do that and to be open about that. I could also recommend anyone to try and find a mentor, someone who's already experienced and someone who you can talk to and maybe discuss also the things that you are uncertain of, what you should do in a certain situation. That helps a lot. If you are with a group of companies, if you build up a network and you're in the same sector, then that also helps a lot to tell your government what they need to do for you in order to excel. Because you want to do a great job and your government wants you to do a great job, because then there will be more jobs, there will be more tax money coming in, so that's what they want you to do. But then you also have to tell them what you need in order to do that. And Holland Marine Equipment, the trade association that I worked for, they started in 1988, basically with a fight with the Dutch government. I will not go into the details, there's not enough time. They had a fight with a quarrel, basically, with the Dutch government. And then the Dutch government said, yes, you're right to complain, but we cannot talk to 12 or 14 companies. So please, can you make sure that you organize yourself and that you speak with one voice and that you have one representative. And they even handed some money for the company to have one representative whose hours for that were paid. And then he could go and make the formal complaints, and he could be the counterpart of the government. And that was the start of this association. And the association, when I joined in 2004, it had 140 members. When I left, it had 320 members, and now it has 400 member companies. And it does a lot of services for those companies. It represents them. It's very, very successful. And that's, I think, because of its sectoral approach, because it represents a very specific group of companies. So now I try to imagine that I'm the boss or the export manager of an SME company in Estonia. What would I do? What would I do if I wanted to export my products? Please use your imagination a little bit. Mine is not so big. I couldn't picture myself selling organic cosmetics or something like that. So please think about my background that I just told you and try to think how that would work. So I would start with desk research, perhaps make an export funnel. What I mean by that is to make a choice which countries are the most attractive to me to go to. And then after you study, verify. And by verifying, I mean go to people that you know who already know that market and travel to that country. Because in the end, the only way you can find out more is if you travel there and if you go. So you have to think of a number of things. You have to check your product, the product market combination. Is it actually there in that country? Does it work? Do I have to make changes to my product? Is it according to the local laws and regulations? All very important things. Same goes for the pricing. Then sales and distribution. One thing that I find important to say is you do not need to be an excellent salesperson to start exporting your product. Actually, if you build up a network and if you have representatives, which is the strategy that most SME companies have, because you cannot afford to open offices all over the world, then those people, your representatives, they can do the selling for you. You have to manage them. But if you look for a partner, then a very important factor is trust. My personal rule is that I trust people based on what I hear from other companies. So again, I talk to other companies, other Dutch companies, and I ask them, what are your experience with this company, with this potential agent or distributor? And if that's good, then I feel that I can do business with them. In the end, you have to trust the people you work with, and if they fail to repay that trust, if you were not correct to trust them, then you have to change. But of course, you have to try to make good choices so that you don't have to change too often. Personally, I've also been cheated one time in Asia. By a representative. It's not nice, but it doesn't say anything about the country or that it's a bad way to do business that way. It just means that you have to find another one. Marketing and promotion. Basically, the only thing that I want to say about that, I was researching the shipbuilding market in Estonia, and what I saw is that the websites are really excellent. So keep up the good work. Much better than what we do in the Netherlands, I must say. Much more modern. Another thing I want to discuss is after sales. Be prepared to support your product. Think about this, that if you are bringing your product to the other side of the world, well, some products are, let's say, fire and forget, but other products you have to maintain. So you have to think of a strategy how to do that. Then also, especially if you're a starting customer, exporter, then the technical part of exports is something that you really have to think about and that you should learn about if you haven't done that already. How the customs works, how logistics works, the letter of credit, terms and conditions, and also the income terms. And for instance, also the income terms in combination with a letter of credit. It's not really sexy, this kind of thing, to learn about, and you might think, but I'm busy with my company, and I have my product, and it's the best product in the world, and I'm gonna sell it, and I'm gonna make a lot of profit, so it doesn't matter, I will be successful anyway. Well, you can be, sure, but you may also pay a very high tuition fee, so if you learn about these things first, then that can help you to earn more money, basically, and have less cost. Then about the public and private partnerships. So what I want to make a case for is trust. Trust in your fellow Estonian companies, especially the ones in the same sector that are not your competitors, that you can talk to, that you can ask questions. Set up a cooperative group based on that sector that you're in, maybe the food industry or the wood industry. And then when you talk, what you will find is that your colleagues in the same industry, they have the same problems. So you can work on these topics and you can also make a sector strategy. And the moment you do that, that's when you also can talk to your government about it. Say, this is our strategy. How can you support us? That way, you take charge. And the way that the government and companies, and especially SME companies, work together, it's a little bit like in this picture. This is a bit of a metaphor. If you are an SME company, and you're not working together with other companies, and your voice is not heard, then you're like this small boat. This, of course, is the government. It's big and powerful, and if it wants to get you, then you have a big problem. This can be SME companies if they work together, like a tugboat. And the tugboat is really important because it has to bring the big boat safely into the port and take it out of the port, and the big ship cannot really navigate without it. On the other hand, the tugboat, if there wouldn't be the big ships, then there wouldn't be a tugboat. So they need each other. And if everything goes well, then they are complaining about each other, because they are different entities, and they should remember that always from each other. So the government is big, it moves slow, and its purpose is not to make mistakes. And that's good, that's how it should work. There should be checks and balances. But the SME companies, they are quick, they are taking risks. Sometimes they have to be very opportunistic, and they have to be fast and flexible. So when the SME companies are not complaining about the government, then there must be something wrong. That's basically what's going on. But you have to understand that from each other. You have to work together. And the government must allow also this small tugboat to change the course and perhaps slow down the vessel or make it go quicker. The benefits of sectoral cooperation, it's to speak with one voice. Well, all of the above, basically. I like to highlight the lower one. If you work together, then you can also travel together. And if you travel together, you go abroad and you share new experiences. You go to places where you will have new experiences, will be totally different than anywhere else. And once you share that, that's also when you build on trust. because you travel together, you rely on each other, you talk, you discuss these new experiences that you've had, and that creates also the bonding that you need in order to trust each other as companies and make next steps. So the conclusion, what I like you to take away from my presentation today, is I recommend you to build a strategy individually for your company, but also for your sector, to organize yourself, have a sectoral approach, and last but not least, to have the trust, to have the faith. Faith in your fellow Estonian companies, faith in your own international network, but probably most of all, the faith in yourself that you will do a good job. And any missed opportunity, any missed orders, that's just a minor setback in the path to greatness. So that's how I like to end. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good afternoon.